Hello, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. Since we're seeing this from the future, I hope it's a good future. Today, I'm going to go over some of the key elements of our TED Talk summary assessment project, as well as share my own example of a TED Talk summary. In terms of the basic requirements of this project, you will each choose a TED Talk on a topic of your choice. The original talk should be between 6 and 12 minutes in length. And after watching this TED Talk, you should prepare a brief summary speech, a speech that would take you about 3 to 5 minutes to complete. If you want to write a script for yourself, that script will be between 400 to 600 words in order to accomplish that desired length. However, as I'll explain later, writing a script for this assignment is not necessary. And finally, as per our previous class on plagiarism, the summary should be in your own words. And if you take ideas from the TED Talk to use, you should give credit to the original speaker of the TED Talk. There's a few more elements to keep in mind. For one, your TED Talk should include the main idea, as well as some examples, facts, or explanations that help support your main idea. And finally, it should give some kind of actionable advice or something that the audience members can do to improve their life or the world around them. Finally, as a member of the audience, you also have a job. You should ask 2 follow-up questions during the course of presentations. This means you should ask 1 follow-up question during 2 separate presentations, so a combination of 2 follow-up questions throughout the course of our presentations. And the follow-up questions should be open-ended and very clear and insightful questions that demonstrate that you were listening actively during the trainee's presentation. So the questions should ask the trainee to expand on their knowledge or maybe to share a personal insight, something that shows that you were really listening to your classmate's presentation. As I mentioned before, while you have the option to prepare yourself a script when you are preparing for your speech, it is not required. It is not mandatory. One of my recommendations, rather than creating a script to follow, is to prepare talking points. Here is an example of some talking points that I made in the past for my own TED summary speech. As you can see, I use mostly keywords and even pictures. This actually something that I wrote on a post-it, so you don't require too much space to prepare talking points. And in fact, it can be more effective to prepare talking points rather than a script because it allows you more chances for eye contact and interaction with the audience, as opposed to simply standing and reading a piece of paper. Now, let me share an example of a TED Talk summary speech. First, listen to this brief TED Talk by a speaker named Graham Hill.
What's in the box? Whatever it is, it must be pretty important because I've traveled with it, moved it from apartment to apartment to apartment. Sound familiar? Did you know that we Americans have about 3 times the amount of space we did 50 years ago? 3 times. So you'd think with all this extra space, we'd have plenty of room for all our stuff, right? Nope. There's a new industry in town, a $22 billion, 2.2 billion square foot industry, that of personal storage. So we've got triple the space, but we become such good shoppers that we need even more space. So where does this lead? Lots of credit card debt, huge environmental footprints, and perhaps not coincidentally, our happiness levels flatline over the same 50 years. Well, I'm here to suggest there's a better way, that less might actually equal more. I bet most of us have experienced at some point the joys of less. College, in your dorm, traveling in a hotel room, camping, where you got basically nothing, maybe a boat. Whatever it was for you, I bet that among other things, this gave you a little more freedom, a little more time. So I want to suggest that less stuff and less space are going to equal smaller footprint. It's actually a great way to save you some money, and it's going to give you a little more ease in your life. So I started a project called Life Edited at lifeedited.org to further this conversation and to find some great solutions in this area. First up, crowdsourcing my 420 square foot apartment in Manhattan with partners Mutopo and Javoto.com. I wanted it all. Home office, sit-down dinner for 10, room for guests, and all my kite surfing gear. With over 300 entries from around the world, I got it, my own little jewel box. By buying a space that was 420 square feet instead of 600, immediately I'm saving 200 grand. Smaller space is going to make for smaller utilities, save some more money there, but also a smaller footprint. And because it's really designed around an edited set of possessions, my favorite stuff, and really designed for me, I'm really excited to be there. So how can you live little? 3 main approaches. First of all, you need to edit ruthlessly. We've got to clear the arteries of our lives. That shirt that I haven't worn in years, it's time for me to let it go. We've got to cut the extraneous out of our lives, and we've got to learn to stem the inflow. We need to think before we buy. Ask ourselves, is that really going to make me happier? Truly? By all means, we should buy and own some great stuff, but we want stuff that we're going to love for years, not just stuff. Secondly, our new mantra, small is sexy. We want space efficiency. We want things that are designed for how they're used the vast majority of the time, not that rare event. Why have a 6-burner stove when you rarely use 3? So we want things that nest, we want things that stack, and we want to digitize. You can take paperwork, books, movies, and you can make it disappear. It's magic. Finally, we want multifunctional spaces and housewares. A sink's combined with a toilet. A dining table becomes a bed, same space. A little side table stretches out to seat 10. In the winning Life Edited scheme in a render here, we combine a moving wall with transformer furniture to get a lot out of the space. Look at the coffee table. It grows in height and width to seat 10. My office folds away, easily hidden. My bed just pops out of the wall, 2 fingers. Guests move the moving wall, have some fold-down guest beds. And of course, my own movie theater. So I'm not saying that we all need to live in 420 square feet, but consider the benefits of an edited life. Go from 3,000 to 2,000, from 1,500 to 1,000. Most of us, maybe all of us, are here pretty happily for a bunch of days with a couple bags, maybe small space, hotel room. So when you go home and you walk through your front door, take a second and ask yourselves, could I do with a little life editing? Would that give me a little more freedom? Maybe a little more time? What's in the box? It doesn't really matter. I know I don't need it. What's in yours? Maybe, just maybe, less might equal more. So let's make room for the good stuff. Thank you.
If you live in the US, like me, you're very familiar with Boxes. We have so many boxes. Boxes help us hold all of our stuff. Today, people in the US have 3 times as much space as they had 50 years ago. But are they 3 times as happy? Research says no. In his TED Talk, Graham Hill talks about how perhaps it's time to rethink the idea that more stuff is equal to more happiness. Perhaps we would be smart to reconsider how many possessions we have, and perhaps we can actually be happier with less stuff. For example, Hill speaks about how his life greatly improved when he moved into a smaller apartment. This helped his life in 2 different ways. First, it allowed him to save lots of money on both his rent and his utilities. And moreover, moving into a smaller space forced him to edit his possessions ruthlessly. He had to decide what is the most important things for me to keep because I do not have the space to keep it all. Moreover, Hill talks about how he tries to be very mindful about what he buys. He turns a mindful eye to what he buys. Every time he is tasked to think of an item that he wants to purchase, he has to make a decision. And the answer is either, hell yeah, or no. After that, Hill talks about how we can create more space efficiency by finding items that have multiple uses. For example, perhaps you can have a folding table that you can use for either individual meals or can fold out and use in more family or friendly gatherings. He also talks about how different items can do double duty and how items can stack one inside of each other in order to save space. Look, he's not saying that we have to live like monks. We do not have to be perfectly ascetic and have no possessions at all. However, we could do a lot for our happiness if we were able to be mindful about the items that we have. And rather than loving to have more stuff, perhaps we could learn to love the things that we have. Choose what is most important to us and then cut out the rest. Because all of that space that we can free up in our homes is the space that we can have for the people and the things and the activities that bring us the most joy and the most happiness. So, what is it that I have in this box? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Does it matter to you? Thank you. So, that's just an example of a TED Talk summary speech that I made myself using the different talking points that I listed here, and also by using a kind of prop or visual aid. In this case, I used a box. So, when you consider the TED summary speech that you will do, consider what kind of prop or image or visual aid that you can use in your own speech. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class or on Kakao or on email. And until then, I will see you next time. So, cheers.